Hello, coin collectors out there. 1957 was quite the year, especially at the Denver Mint. There were over 1 billion coins produced that have the 1957 D. Lincoln Wheat penny. So you might have one of these, which is why you ended up on this particular video, but you also might have one of these coins as well. So I want to focus your attention on this specific area right here. I'm using my pencil to kind of point to it right there. Now that is a very common error with this particular year of the 1957 Denver Mint Lincoln penny. That right there is what's known as the BIE error. Now I'm going to give you another kind of look at it at a couple different angles right here so you can kind of get a good look at it, get some light on it. So you can see in between the B and the E, there's a little bit of a blob that kind of resembles a I, and that's what's known as a die crack. And it has a special designation. It's known as the BIE error because the in between the B and the E, it kind of has a I shape to it. And that is a very common die crack. So the BIE error is named after the die break between the B and the E in Liberty. The thin area between the B and the E seems to be the most frequent part of the Lincoln cent die to crack off. The letter I that appears to be between the B and the E is the reason that the error is called the BIE error. There are over 1,500 types of BIE errors. The majority of the BIE errors occur in Lincoln cents dated 1950s. So this right here is just a basic blank planchet for you. This one right here happens to be for the nickel, but there's some blank planchets out there that you can get your hands on that are for the penny. So what happens, the die has the design of the coin on it, and it slams down into these blank planchets and then forms a coin that looks something like this. However, sometimes bad things happen to the die, especially when the mintages of those coins are very high, or they're just not replacing the dies as frequently as they should be. Now I imagine in the 1957 they were getting ready for the wheat penny to kind of switch out and rotate out, and the Lincoln Memorial to appear on the reverse. So they were probably focused on that, didn't really pay enough attention to their dies, and they were also just producing so many that a lot of errors happened to happen with the 1957 Denver Mint. Now 1956 Denver Mint was also a very high year of mintage. There were over 1 billion produced at the 1957 Denver Mint for the Lincoln penny. There were 1,998,201,000 produced at the 1957 Denver Mint. There were also 800,000 produced at the 1958 Denver Mint for the Lincoln penny. So 1956 to 1958, very high mintages for the Denver Mint pennies. There also weren't any business class regular circulating strikes that were struck in the 1957 at the San Francisco Mint. So all of the mintage for the circulating coins was focused just on Denver and on Philadelphia. If you've got a 1957 that doesn't have a mint mark on it, that means that it's made at the Philadelphia Mint. Now the Philadelphia Mint for 1957, much lower than the Denver Mint. Philadelphia Mint had 282 million. Denver Mint, as I've said a couple times, had over 1 billion. Now a little bit more about die cracks, die breaks, and die chips, as well as die cuds. So at first I thought this might be a die cud because my understanding of the die cuds was that it's just kind of a blob that appears on the surface of the coin. Now unfortunately, after a little bit of research, I found that the die cuds are just mostly centralized kind of on the edge of the coin. They're just mostly located on around the rim. So if you see like a blob that comes up like right around here, that could indicate that it is a die cud and not a die break, which is what we are looking at right here. So other stuff that has to do with the die cracks, breaks, and chips. Dies can crack during the production, causing jagged, raised lines on the surface that subsequently strike the coins. In U.S. coinage, Morgan dollars are actually very common for having slight die breaks very frequently on them. Dies with cracks, especially those with cracks near the edge, sometimes break. Now that would be a very, very cool error coin to have, just a break in the edge instead of just a cud or a kind of a blob. A die break on the edge of the coin would be very cool to happen. Very cool to have. The broken piece may be retained in a position or fall away. Die cracks and retained die breaks can be difficult to distinguish. Retained die breaks cross the coin surface from rim to rim, so that a retained die break would be that the coin hasn't really shifted too much and that the crack is just contained throughout the coin and the piece hasn't fallen away. So that would be very cool. Everyone should keep their eye out for that. Coin struck after the die break falls away have a raised, rounded, or unstruck area around the edge. So those are known as cuds. So cuds are a die break falls away and then creates a raised, rounded, unstruck area around the edge of the coin. So focus on those particular errors. I know I gave you a lot of information right there on the breaks, cracks, and chips, as well as cut errors. It might be easier if you go take some of this information and then watch some other videos or look at some other pictures online. Pictures would probably be even more helpful than videos as far as kind of isolating the particular error that you might have. But keep your eye out for that 1957 Denver Mint BIE error, focused in that area right there of the coin. And the BIE error will be a raised I in between the B and the E that shouldn't be there. All right, everyone, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know it was pretty technical, but I try and switch it up, make some basic videos and some technical videos, so hopefully you liked it. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. All right, thanks, and best of luck coin collecting, everyone. Enjoy.